There is a type of woman modern society still does not know how to explain. Not because she is mysterious, not because she is broken, but because she quietly escaped a system that most people never even realize they are trapped inside. She lives alone, alone peacefully. She doesn't constantly post cryptic quotes online begging for attention. She isn't desperately searching for validation. And the strangest part? She is not waiting for someone to save her life from emptiness, because her life is not empty. That reality unsettles people more than they admit, because a woman who genuinely enjoys her own company forces the world to confront a terrifying psychological question. What if happiness was never dependent on romantic dependency in the first place? Psychologists call this self-determination, the ability to generate emotional stability internally rather than outsourcing it to external approval. And for many people, that idea feels almost illegal, because entire industries are built on emotional insecurity. Entire social structures depend on people believing they are incomplete alone. But some women eventually wake up, and once they do, they rarely return to the old emotional prison. What makes this transformation fascinating is that it isn't theory. It has happened repeatedly in real life. Different countries, different cultures, different personalities. Yet the psychological pattern remains almost identical. And the first story begins with a woman the world thought had everything, but privately, she was disappearing inside her own life. Story 1. Adele and the psychology of emotional exhaustion. When Adele divorced her husband in 2019, millions of people immediately turned it into another celebrity heartbreak story. The media framed it as loss, failure, tragedy. But something very different was happening psychologically. Adele later explained in interviews that she reached a point where she no longer recognized herself emotionally. That sentence matters deeply. Because in psychology, there is something called identity diffusion. It happens when a person spends so many years adapting themselves to relationships, expectations, and emotional labor that they slowly lose connection to their authentic self. And many women experience this without even realizing it. They become caretakers of everyone else's emotional climate. Everyone feels supported except them. Everyone feels understood except them. Everyone gets warmth while they quietly burn out internally. Adele's transformation after divorce confused people because she didn't collapse publicly the way society expected. Instead, she became calmer, sharper, more grounded. That shocked people, because culturally, women are often expected to emotionally deteriorate after separation. But psychologically, some people don't break after solitude. They recover inside it. This is what psychologists call emotional decompression. The nervous system finally exits survival mode. The constant pressure to perform disappears. And for the first time in years, the mind becomes quiet enough to hear itself again. That is why many women who choose solitude suddenly become healthier, more creative, more spiritually connected, and emotionally clearer than they were inside relationships. Not because relationships are bad, but because chronic emotional imbalance is devastating to the human nervous system. And this leads to the second story, a story that revealed how deeply society fears women who stop needing approval. Story 2. Emma Watson and the fear of female independence. A few years ago, Emma Watson used a phrase during an interview that spread across the internet like wildfire. She described herself as self-partnered. The reaction was explosive. People mocked her, made jokes, rolled their eyes. But psychologically, the reaction itself revealed something profound. Why were people so emotionally triggered by a woman peacefully describing fulfillment without a romantic relationship? Because her statement unconsciously attacked one of society's deepest narratives, that adulthood without romantic attachment equals failure. This connects directly to a psychological concept called normative social conditioning. From childhood, People absorb invisible scripts about what a successful life must look like. Get older, find a partner, get married, build identity around external milestones. So when someone steps outside that structure and remains emotionally stable, it creates cognitive dissonance in others, especially in people who secretly fear being alone. Emma Watson wasn't saying relationships are unnecessary. She was saying something far more threatening. I refuse to define my worth through dependency. That distinction changes everything. And this is where many women begin evolving psychologically. They stop asking, "How do I become lovable?" and start asking, "What kind of life actually feels emotionally peaceful?" That question is revolutionary. Because many people are not pursuing love. They are pursuing relief from loneliness. Those are not the same thing. One is connection. The other is emotional anesthesia. And women who learn the difference often become radically harder to manipulate. Why? Because manipulation feeds on fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. Remove those fears, and toxic dynamics suddenly lose their power. That's exactly what happened in the next story. A woman who transformed solitude into one of the strongest psychological identities on earth. Story 3. Oprah Winfrey and the Power of Self-Ownership. Oprah Winfrey spent decades being questioned about one thing over and over again. Why didn't she marry? Why didn't she follow the traditional path? Notice something fascinating. People rarely ask powerful men those questions with the same obsession. But when women choose autonomy over conformity, society becomes deeply uncomfortable. Because female independence disrupts historical power structures. Oprah openly discussed how protecting her inner peace became one of the central priorities of her life. And psychologically, this reflects something called self-concept clarity. A person with high self-concept clarity understands who they are beyond social performance. They are not constantly shape-shifting for approval. They are internally anchored. And people like this become extremely difficult to control emotionally. This is why emotionally independent women are often mislabeled as intimidating. In reality, they are simply less willing to betray themselves. That difference matters. Because many people confuse compliance with kindness. They confuse self-sacrifice with love. They confuse emotional exhaustion with loyalty. But psychologically mature individuals understand something else entirely. Real love should not require self-erasure. And Oprah's life demonstrated another powerful truth. Solitude is not isolation. Those are completely different psychological states. Isolation is painful disconnection. Solitude is intentional restoration. One drains the nervous system, the other rebuilds it. That distinction changes the entire conversation around women living alone. Many of these women are not hiding from life. They are finally recovering from years of overstimulation, emotional chaos, and performative living. And perhaps no story illustrates this transformation more painfully than the next one. Because this woman discovered freedom only after surviving extraordinary emotional darkness. Right now, this next video will appear on your screen. Why your family secretly resists your success. The brutal psychology behind it. Don't ignore it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel,